I'm always reminded when the subject of belief and the status of belief and the authority of belief comes up that a few years ago, the grandson of Ayatollah Khomeini came to Washington, spoke at the American Enterprise Institute, and I asked him what his position was on freedom of religion. And he said, yes, of course, freedom of religion, but also freedom of non-religion. Because he said religion, in order to be genuine, has to be spontaneous. And if you don't feel it, then you shouldn't practice it. And so it should be something that comes from within and fulfills you and so on and so forth. So I thought, well, you know, there's a sign of hope. And I also delighted in the thought of all the convulsions going on inside the grave of the Ayatollah Khomeini when these words were pronounced. And with that, Wafa, would you continue enlightening us, please?
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for your kind invitation. I am truly honored to be your speaker today. When you have to deal with Al-Qaeda death threat on a daily basis, all what you need is a teenager daughter to argue with you and make you forget your stress. Every time I leave home to give a speech, my daughter Angela would ask, Mom, are you sure people understand your English gibberish? Once she heard Mr. Yasser Arafat, I hope you remember Mr. Yasser Arafat, speaking in English. She screamed, Mom, this man sounds exactly like you when you speak in English. Thank God she didn't say he looks like you. Before I left home to attend this conference, she hugged me tightly and said, Mom, please be safe and do me a favor. I said, what? She said, when you give your speech, make sure to stand on a chair so everybody can see you. So I'm hoping everyone is able to see me and to understand my English gibberish. We live in unusual and dangerous times. And because of it, we must take a proactive role in securing a peaceful world for all of us and the future generation. Many in the Western world have faced fascism and communism within our lifetime. And now, the greatest challenge for all of us is the threat of radical Islam. While we are all from many different countries around the world, this common issue brings us together. 9/11 has changed the world. Even before, but particularly since then, fanatic Islamic religious leaders have continuously demonstrated in speeches and actions their desire to conquer and rule the world by imposing Islam's strictures on our society. As we know, Islam is not only a religion, it is a political ideology deeply rooted in its teaching, and it advocates violence and enforces its agenda by force. As we know, Islam is an ancient religion, and the fanatic religious leaders expect us to practice it today the same way as it was done many centuries ago. The Quran is interpreted literally, word by word, and strict adherence is required. If you don't accept the literal meaning of the Quran, you're not a Muslim. Those who don't adhere to the demands of Islam, the unbelievers, the infidels, are all condemned to death. Since Islam values death, while the Western world values life, carrying out extreme violence is a noble act. While the words don't change, the present-day interpretation of the Quran should change as we change with the times. We in America are fortunate. We have freedom of speech, freedom of expression, and the freedom of religion. We can express our views and feelings and practice our religion according to our own wishes. Nobody imposes their ways on us. This not only allows us to speak out, but makes it our obligation. We keep saying that we are peace-loving, moderate Muslims. Why aren't the majority of us speaking out against radical Islam? But what is the definition? Definition of moderate? According to my knowledge, we can be Muslim only one way. We must adhere to the laws and live by the word of the Quran. This may have been okay for many centuries, but now, in the 21st century, we need to reconsider. Instead of being tribal and staying in our own community, we are global and travel widely. Today, we are more educated, more traveled, and we have incredible communication opportunities, including the internet. We have changed a lot, and we must change the practice of Islam to fit into the 21st century. Because Islam is both a religion and a political belief, we must separate it into citizenship and religion. If we reformed Islam as a religion, we must begin with an end to the teaching of hate and violence and replace it with tolerance. We shouldn't glorify death. We must not kill to achieve our goal. We must educate the population starting at an early age and place value on life. We must denounce the teaching of violence and exert pressure on our governments, Islamic governments, to change the curriculum. Once we stop hating, we will be able to learn how to love ourselves so we can love others. It is imperative that translation of speeches be accurate and the message remain the same in English and every other language. We must stop misleading the public to suit the aim of the message. We cannot placate the American public while we inside the Muslim world. This all begins with education. We need to educate the very young, starting at age 3 or so sooner, and teach love, not hate. We know for a fact Saudi Arabia builds and maintains a majority of the mosque and supplies all the textbooks which follow a curriculum laid down by the Saudi Ministry of Education. These contain passages from Wahhabi beliefs, the most extreme form of Islam. It teaches adherents to hate Jews, Christians, and all other infidels, America and Israel. These books must also be updated to reflect 21st century ideas and beliefs. Saudi leaders keep saying that books have been updated and the demand for jihad eliminated. But in reality, that's not the case. We are told one thing, but the opposite is continuously being said and done. And everywhere, these books infiltrate into schools, here in America and everywhere else, creating the growing hatred and violence. We must have courage to speak out. Discussion, diplomacy, and demand in this regard are the only way, the only solution for the future. We cannot tolerate appeasement and inaccurate translations and pronouncement. We will not be misled. Since we are talking about reform, religion, and political ideology, I wonder if you're familiar with the Saudi flag. Most flags have colors and symbols, while the Saudi flag is one of the very few with writing and symbol. The writing says, "There is no God but Allah." And below that is a large sword. The sword and the words representing a country with a desire to conquer and fight. With that symbol, how can we have peace unless we work to reform, separate the religion from politics, and establish a new flag? Since we're talking about symbolism, how about the flag of Hezbollah? It has the same writing, but the sword is replaced with a gun. They're competing with each other to see who is harsher, who is tougher in smashing the enemy of Allah and Muhammad. What can we expect from people with this kind of mentality? Nothing short of hatred and killing. I truly believe that the reformation process should take place in Saudi Arabia first. And in order for it to be effective, Saudi Arabia should establish a new flag to represent their so-called new mentality. The motivation of the radical Islam is present on every level: ethnic, cultural, religious, and political, to create a Muslim world. Prior to my interview on Al Jazeera, I was very much involved with my Muslim community here in the state. I was told hundreds of times that we are here to spread Islam and to replace the American Constitution with Islamic Sharia. Militant Islam is violent. They're not restricted by morality, and they value death, while the Western culture values life. Sharia law violates the foundation principles of the United States as well as common sense for the 21st century. The Muslim lifestyle, beliefs, and teachings are complete opposite of modernity and Western way of life. It is the lifestyle of the Middle Ages versus the 21st century. We in the West are for human rights, while they violate them at all levels to achieve their goal. In the United States, our Constitution allows us to disagree. But if you disagree with the radical Muslim viewpoint, you are labeled a racist. Our freedom of expression is being used against us. The Muslim world must learn to accept criticism. After all, the 9/11 hijackers were Muslims, and sometimes unfairly, we all have to suffer for the acts of a few. We must protect the population. U.S. Air acted on our behalf when the passengers did not feel safe on a plane with 6 imams who behaved in a strange way. In act of appeasement, we ended up apologizing for U.S. Air's quick thinking rather than crediting the airline for possibly averting tragedy. The world realizes that not all Muslims are terrorists, but they also realize that most terrorists, if not all, are Muslim. Muslims feel free to criticize others and demand special accommodation for their religious beliefs and cultural practices. However, Americans are not free to criticize Muslims. This is considered racist. America is the most tolerant country, but it is being abused on all levels. Only by confronting the past can we build a better future. We cannot remain silent when the calls to destruction of the West are echoing in the world. Europeans didn't believe Hitler would carry out his goals and didn't feel the direct threat. Close to 15 million gypsies, homosexuals, Jehovah's Witnesses, political dissidents, and Jews died in that disbelief. As we all know, history repeats itself, and as the saying goes, those who forget the past are condemned to repeat it. We must not let it happen. What can we do? It is not what we can, but what we must do. It is our duty and obligation to protect, respect, and cherish this United States as well as our freedom. We must raise awareness, inform, and educate the Muslim world about Western way. They should respect and not condemn Western way of life. We must do it now. We must also secure and promote a peaceful world for our future generations. Our children and grandchildren are entitled to live in the same freedom that we have enjoyed. We must consider new, appropriate rules of engagement. We must stand for and speak the truth. We need to use our freedom of expression, which is in our Constitution. We must abandon political correctness, which prevents us from speaking facts and the truth. The progressive secular Muslims in this country and around the world should lead this mission. The secular progressive Muslims must mobilize and unite so a change can be implemented. We must be united, strong, and courageous. Americans are good people and find it difficult to believe that others are evil. We should be able to live side by side and create peace on earth. We must not be silent. We must not allow them to poison young minds and brainwash them. Only a few so-called moderate Muslims in the United States speak out. Why? Are they afraid, or are they in silent support of the cause? Many of us who don't support the radical Islamic force worldwide left our country of origin, where we couldn't speak freely. Some remain silent, but others here in America use our laws and democracy against all of us to spread hatred and defeat us. Let's not be naive. We can, and we will make a difference in this world. We who believe in change and the preservation of Islam as a religion must not compromise our principles. We must see radical Islam as a threat to be confronted. Wake up, America, and good Muslim citizen, before it is too late. We must promote peace and harmony and demand peaceful coexistence with all religion. Thank you so much, and may God bless you all.
Thank you, Wafa. I don't think your daughter really needed to worry about people seeing you and hearing you and so forth. Okay, I will unfortunately take my leave of you at this point, since Barbara and I have to get back to Washington so that I can pretend to work at the American Enterprise Institute. But I do want to have the great pleasure of introducing my friend Tashbih Syed, who will bring this, the formal part of this session to a close. And I hope that, Nina, you will come up here and moderate the questions and answers once Tashbih finishes. Will you please? So thanks very much, and thanks, Ibn Ward, for having me here, and I hope to see you again soon. Tashbih. I'll miss you. Yes, I'll miss you too. Have fun.
Have a nice day.
I thank everyone, especially Center for Inquiry, for organizing this conference. And this conference, because of its subject, secular Islam, is vitally important at this time in our society. Why I'm saying that? Because of my own experience. Why I'm so appreciative of this attempt to start a discussion on secular Islam, or the possibility of Islam being reformed, or impossibility of Islam that it cannot be reformed. Because I distinctly remember around 1956, immediately after the Suez Canal incident, I attended a meeting of Jamaat-e-Islami Pakistan in Karachi, which is the port city in Pakistan. The thrust and the focus of that meeting was that the real war against Judeo-Christian civilization and values will be fought in the United States of America, not anywhere else. They referred to even Palestinian problem, and they underlined and insisted that even the Middle East disputes, the final battle for that would be fought in the United States of America. How important it is for Islam to be reformed, because unfortunately we cannot convert all 1.123 billion Muslims or eliminate them. We have to find a way to change them into a faith that agrees with dissidency, disagreement, and pluralism. When I came to Pakistan, the United States of America in 1981, I had some name because of my television background. Most of the important people in Southern California who were connected with Islamic centers, they discussed with me in various meetings the importance of a person like me who has the media experience to participate in this jihad within the United States of America, to overwhelm Judeo-Christian values, to change the soul of this democracy into a Sharia state. They were very concerned that a particular religion controls this country. They were very worried that if they do not take action, then this country will continue to support countries like Israel and will work against the interest of the Muslim nations. So they will have to find a way to influence the judicial and constitutional process of this country so that they can influence its policies and make it distance itself from whichever country they don't want the United States to support. The subject today is secularism and Islamic thought. We'll have to find out what are because the foundations of radical Islam, the foundations of political Islam, they are in the history of Islam, in the origins of Islam. What are the origins of Islam? Prophet Muhammad is perhaps arguably is the only prophet who was successful in his lifetime to not only have a considerable number of converts into Islam, a nation of Muslims, and also was successful in establishing a state in Medina. He understood the importance of owning a state, because without the power of the state, it is always difficult to spread any theme, any ideology, any message. Once he got that state in 622 in Medina, he had to consolidate it. And here is the problem. If Prophet Muhammad would have distinguished between his role as a prophet and as a political role as a statesman or head of the state, perhaps many of the actions which he took to consolidate the Islamic state may not have been understood or misunderstood as an injunction from God. They would not have been accepted as divine rule. Like, for instance, when in Medina, when he massacred the Jewish tribes, if it would have been accepted as a political action on the part of a head of the state or a political party, then perhaps we could have debated on that. We could have discussed whether it was right or it was not, or it was wrong. But the fact that Quran endorsed it, the fact that it became a kind of a ruling from Allah to take that action, condemned the infidels for all times to come. In the very first message, when he introduced himself as a prophet on Mount Hira, the very first line that he said to the pagans of Makkah, that if I tell you that behind me, behind this hillock, there lies an enemy in wait for you. Will you believe me? The people of Makkah said, yes, because you have a reputation of not lying. That's why we will believe you. Now, by narrating this particular line, my objective is to underline a fact that he mentioned the term enemy for those who were either not accepting his message, or he was sure that they will not accept his message. So from that time on, anyone who does not subscribe to the message is considered an enemy. When he established that state, one of the first acts were to send 5 letters to different head of the states, Iran, Ethiopia, Yemen, and 2 others, asking them to either embrace Islam or wait for the punishment. That also set the tone for all times to come for Muslims, how to deal with those who refuse to accept the message. Then again, as we all now have come to know, that Islam considers the world divided into 2 sections. House of war, Darul Harb, and house of peace, Darul Islam. But the same distinction is translated in other terms. The house of war is basically Jahiliyyah, the house of darkness, which is secularism. The house of peace is the house enlightened, which is Islam. Now, I have a problem when we use terms political Islam, radical Islam, Islamism, because my problem is, look at the qualities that Islam represents. When it does not distinguish between the mosque and the state, it is political by itself. You don't have to call it political Islam. Islam is political because there is no Islam without a state. Then, when we use the term radical Islam, why do we use radical Islam? Because Islam, whatever way we want to be apologetic about the institution of jihad, some people say, no, it doesn't mean a struggle with sword. It's an internal struggle to cleanse one's soul and conscience. Maybe. But as a Muslim, I have not seen an example where an author, a thinker, a pacifist is termed as a mujahid, the holy warrior. See? I have not seen an artist being labeled as a holy warrior. I have only come to know holy warriors who spread Islam, who expanded Islamic state, who consolidated Islamic imperialism by invading outside neighborhoods, outside regions, who did not threaten them. So there is something in the foundations of this faith that without taking those foundations or challenging those foundations, we cannot hope to bring about any reform in this faith. But how can you bring about or even try or initiate a reform movement in this faith when each and every word that provides the basis of radicalism, that provides the basis for violence, is being presented to us as the will of God? If Muhammad would have been a secular head of the state, anyone threatening the state of Islam would not have been labeled as an invader to Allah or against Allah. But being a prophet and the head of the state at the same time, anyone who found anything wrong with Muhammad's practices was suspecting Allah. Any act against the state headed by caliphs or the prophet, of course, were against Allah. Ever since, whoever fights with the Muslim state is fighting against Allah and becomes somebody who needs to be taken care of. Then another big foundation of Islamic militancy is the fact that fundamentalist Muslim considers Islam to be the ultimate truth. When it is the ultimate truth, then it does not need any evolution, any development, any reformation, any change, because it is an ultimate truth. Now, any faith, any ideology that considers itself above evolution, above reformation, has all the chances and all the room for becoming evil. Unless you are ready to accept that truth is a work in progress. Human beings are a work in progress. Their ideas, their thoughts, their philosophies, they are work in progress. You cannot expect to live in peace with others. As a believer, that the faith, the religion that I follow is the ultimate truth. And as a conscientious citizen of this world, how can I leave you people in darkness? I represent the ultimate truth. I want you all to be salvaged, saved. That is the theme that anyone who does not believe in Islam has need to be saved, either by forcing him to convert into Islam or relieving him of the burden of this life. See? So now, the political thought, the Islamic thought, the development of Islamic thought has been aimed at the consolidation of Islamic State. Now, Islamic State, from many fundamentalists that I have talked with and I have learned from, thank you. See, life is very short. Now I'm left with less than 5 minutes. So I have to be very careful what I'm saying, because I have to go and face the music. Right now, the problem that we are facing today can only be handled in the United States of America. Because I'm going back to 1956, when the fundamental Islamists said that the final battle will be fought in the United States. I agree with them. Because this is the only venue where you can speak the truth. This is the only place where people like me can speak and are not lynched right away. I can feel a little safe. 5-6 years ago, after I appeared on a television program, and that program was concerning Professor Al-Aryan, the producer showed me a film, different clips of different occasions where Professor Al-Aryan said, death to America, death to Israel, death to infidels. The producer asked me, after explaining that after September 11, when Professor Al-Aryan was approached by different agencies that we have found use calling death for America, for Israel, for the infidels. How serious were you? He turned around, he told them that you Europeans or Americans or Westerns do not understand. When we say death, we don't mean death. Bringing me to that particular point, then the producer asked me on camera, do I agree with Professor Al-Aryan? I said, death means death. How can I agree with him? When you are saying death to America, you are not saying long live America. See? I returned from New York to my home in California. I received a call from CARE. And the call was to take me to task. Why did I betray the Ummah, the Muslim nation? In whose hands I am playing? Who is paying me? When I said that if I speak truth, being a good Muslim, does that mean I'm in the pay of some infidel power? Does that mean when you claim that the Prophet spoke only the truth, was he in the pay of some big power, some infidels? Please allow me to at least be a good Muslim by accepting first the crimes that we have committed against humanity, and then be able to distinguish between good and evil, and be able to at least show our gratitude to a country that has given us a chance to be free. Thank you very much.